So one of the things I absolutely hate about ministry, an incredible thing, but I don't like it much, is vulnerability. Vulnerability puts you in a very tight position, and in ministry, it's often required. So today I'm going to be vulnerable with you, and I'm going to share something very, very vulnerable with you. I used to, I got my first pastoral degree before I turned 15. And because I was so young, I couldn't go home. We stayed very far. And so after Bible school, I used to go to another place where I would sleep over for the night and then the following morning go back to high school and then go back home in the day. One night, these guys invited me. And by the way, these are men in our church, men I loved, men I knew, men I respected, men I honored. And including in that group of men was my pastor, one of the pastors in our church. Now, these men took me to a place and they said, bro, you have never seen. Okay, so we get there and these 6 men, including a child, there was one guy who was even younger than me there. He was like maybe 10 or 11. And these men were watching pornography. As they were watching pornography, something phenomenal happened. My mind switched on a light bulb, a world I had never seen before. And in this moment, these men that I trusted, known, respected, took my innocence and introduced me to a world of lust, a world of masturbation, a world of pornography. Pornography addiction, it's very difficult to let go of that one. And a world of very difficult conversations. Now, hear me well. This is a very profoundly difficult space to be in because ultimately, what that does is it messes up any child, anywhere. And this began my journey of over a decade of battling with this stuff. Now, I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, a very good friend of mine, Trevor, and I said to him, this is my story. I confided in him this story, and he said to me, oh, but that's how it's always been. This bothered me a lot. He says, this is how it's always been. I'm like, why? He says, because back in the day, because people didn't have phones with internet access. I mean, remember I was 14, I didn't have a phone, and most of these guys didn't have these phones with mobile access and all this stuff that we have right now. The pornography was not a thing that an individual enjoyed personally. It was something that a community of men would enjoy with each other. First of all, I'm already traumatized by this experience of what I saw and now what I'm having to battle with, all right? But now I'm surprised that this is the same for most men. And now here's the problem. Men are introducing other men to pornography. I know guys that have groups, WhatsApp groups, where they share pornographic videos and all that stuff. And it's demeaning. It is snares that men are bringing each other in. And I've learned now, this is my struggle. Having dealt with that, most men in the church, 9 out of 10 men in the church are struggling with pornography, cannot break this habit, cannot deliver themselves out of this environment, and somehow they're stuck in this place because this is life. This has become life for them. This has become all it can be for them. And I am bothered. I am bothered by this cycle. I am bothered by this environment. I'm bothered by the mentality, by the perspective that I could have, honestly, this burden to place on another man. So he would have to fight the same thing I'm fighting in my life and has to struggle with the same thing I'm struggling with in my life. Come on, guys. What's going on in the world? I didn't know this. I thought people stumbled onto porn by mistake and stuff like that. But I'm realizing now that this prison is a prison other men are introducing other men to. It's crazy. How do we break out of a habit that you are ensnared at a young age by people? I'm releasing a book in a couple of weeks called 21 Days of Effective Habit Breaking, and I'm dealing with this. But one of the biggest habits I had to fight in my life to break was the habit called pornography, the habit called masturbation. It was a big problem for me. It was a snare for me. It was something I've never had to fight a bigger battle in my life, and I know this for a fact. Most men are still fighting with it. Number one, I want to say to women, exercise empathy. I don't think you understand how difficult this wall is for a man to break. It was It took me decades of prayer, of self-loathing, even in function, even in places where I'm trying to operate, I'm trying to love God, I'm trying to serve God, but I operate and I serve God in guilt. And the problem with sexual sin, sexual impurity, hear me well, even men, hear me well with this. Sexual impurity impedes your ability to serve God faithfully. Sexual impurity destroys your ability to operate in the supernatural. As a prophetic voice, and it's my responsibility, and I'll say this over and over again, when you operate in the dimension of sexual impurity, you are impeding the move of the Holy Spirit in your life. It mars you. It makes you dirty. It makes you filthy. Why do we know this? Even Jesus himself is speaking about this. When you operate in sexual sin, what you're doing essentially is you're operating in a dimension in which it makes, number one, your mind impure, your function impure, but most importantly, Christ says that when you operate in sexual sin, you are sinning against your own body. Now hear this. Now this is why this conversation matters. There's one thing that lust does, that pornography does, that nothing else in the world can do. When we worship, we have to understand that there's a difference between form and substance. Form and substance. When you are in a marriage, God is bringing you to the substance of marriage. He's bringing you in a place where you empty yourself and you find yourself with this person, and God merges this relationship, you guys, into an incredible mixture of what He intends for you to be. The problem is, in marriage, you love a person, but in pornography, you love the form of a person. So you don't actually want a woman, you want the form of a woman. It's the shape, the breasts and the thighs and the legs and the bum. And you love the idea of a woman and not necessarily the substance of a woman. The problem that happens now is because most men are married, in marriage, still watching pornography, still dealing with this thing. The struggle then is this: you have the substance, but it doesn't feel as great as the form. The form gives you quick gratification. The form of a woman, the shape, the idea of that gives you, it's easier. There's no struggle, there's no stress with that. But you don't want the substance. The substance is more work. I've always said to people, love is complicated. Sex is not complicated. Sex is easy. Transactional sex is easy. I pay you how much money I need to pay you. You give me whatever I need to give, and we part ways. Everybody's happy. Everybody's good. Sharp. Everybody's happy. But the problem is, that's not how love works. Love needs all the complicated bits to come together and all the things to come together. It means romancing your wife, and it means having to be on the same page with her. It means being in tune with how she feels. It means romancing her and building up a level of trust and confidence and understanding. It means intimacy. It means vulnerability. All that stuff is needed in the form of marital sex, in the substance of marital sex. But in masturbation and pornography, it's not. I only need to click on a link, and I go to the link, and I get my stuff done, and I walk away. And that's easy. And so we have to then shift. Men, hear me. We have to shift. And now, and unfortunately, actually quite a large demographic of women. Statistics show that a lot of women in the church are struggling with this. All right. So I'm talking to both genders here. We then have to learn to disassociate ourselves with the false impression of what relationships and marriage is. But what made me so sad, and this broke my heart, is the fact that a lot of the struggles and stuff that we are dealing with, somebody introduces you to that. And that's how the culture understands it. There are men out there introducing other men to pornography. There are men out there introducing other men to sin. There are men out there that are introducing other men to lust. And these people have taken you into prison. That is wrong. There's no way for me to say that in any way better than how I've said that. That is the wrongest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I think that our culture should change. Can we have men, good men, that take us and show us Christ, that lead us into Christ, that show us the excitement of being good, passionate, loving, romantic husbands, as opposed to men that take us to prisons? I'm stuck. I have never forgotten the video I watched, and I was 13 years old, average, around 13 years old, when I saw that. I still have not forgotten that video. I remember it vividly as if it was yesterday, and I'm 34 years old. It's close to 20 years later, and I still cannot get that video out of my mind. That person caused me harm, and they got to walk away and left me in a prison where it took me almost 10 years to break free of. And this is where we are at. Most men and women that are suffering from this, it's important that you find help to deal with this. Part of what we do, part of what our ministry is about, is to say, hey, I've been there. I'll help you walk this journey. Because guess what? I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have the cravings. I know what it's like to fill up your space and your time with things that end up leading you back there. I know what it's like when an Instagram post triggers the wrong idea and the wrong thought, and you have to deal again, contend with your thoughts. I know what it's like to deal with lust. The greatest battle of my life was to fight the fight against lust. And to be honest with you, my relationship with God was stunted whenever I was fighting with pornography until the moment I actually said, I have victory over it. And that's what I want for you. I pray that for you. And I'm so sorry. And I'm so sorry for some of you like me who were led down certain paths by people who just got to walk away and left you there, imprisoned in something of their doing and their making. That's very tragic. And I think that's my story for today. God bless you.